Welcome to Professor Bernard's channel. This video talks about C variables and C primitive data types. Let's dive in. A variable in programming is a named space in the computer's main memory that holds data. Here's a brief explanation of naming rules and conventions for variables. Naming rules must begin with a letter. May also begin with an underscore. Cannot begin with a number or symbol such as $, hash, @ or. Cannot contain a space or symbol. Cannot be a C keyword, which are reserved words with special meaning in the language. Naming conventions. Variables should have meaningful names that clearly define what they store. Start with a lowercase letter. Use camelback or saddleback notation for compound words or phrases. This means starting with a lowercase letter and capitalizing the first letter of each subsequent word without using spaces, underscores, or other symbols. Example of variable names: good variable names, hours worked, total amount, student grade. Bad variable names: first number, starts with a number, total amount, contains space, #price, starts with a symbol. The declaration of a variable in programming is a line of code that creates the variable. When declaring or creating a variable, it allocates a named storage area in the computer's main memory. It allocates a certain number of bytes of space based on its data type. It allows a particular type and size of data to be stored. For example, int num equals 0 declares a variable named num. It allocates 4 bytes of space for num, assuming int data type. It has the capacity to store whole numbers within the range of an integer from -2 billion to +2 billion. It initializes the variable to 0. An uninitialized variable in programming is a variable that is declared but not given a specific initial value. This results in the variable holding an undefined or garbage value, which can lead to unpredictable behavior in the program. For example, int num, in this case, num is uninitialized, and its value is undefined. Attempting to use an uninitialized variable before assigning it a value can lead to errors or unexpected results. It's essential to initialize variables before using them in calculations or other operations. For example, int num, print %d\n, num, accessing the uninitialized variable num causes an error. Therefore, it's good practice to give variables an initial value when declaring them. This ensures that the variable starts with a known and defined value. For example, int num equals 0, initializing num with an initial value of 0. Double big num equals 0.0, initializing big num with an initial value of 0.0. Additionally, a variable's initial value can change during the program's execution. This allows for dynamic behavior and adaptation based on the program's logic and input. In C program, there are 13 C primitive built-in types. First, there are 4 signed integer types. 1. Int, used for storing whole numbers. 2. Short int, a shorter version of int, typically uses fewer bytes for storage. 3. Long int, used for storing larger whole numbers, typically occupies more memory. 4. Long int, used for storing very large whole numbers. Additionally, there are 4 unsigned integer types, which can only store non-negative numbers. 1. Unsigned int, unsigned version of int. 2. Unsigned short int, unsigned version of short int. 3. Unsigned long int, unsigned version of long int. 4. Unsigned long int, unsigned version of long int. There are 2 character types. 1. Char, used for storing a single character. 2. Unsigned char, similar to char, but can only store non-negative values. Finally, there are 3 floating point types. 1. Float, used for representing single precision floating point numbers. 2. Double, used for representing double precision floating point numbers. 3. Long double, used for representing extended precision floating point numbers. These data types provide flexibility for storing different kinds of data in C programs, each with its own range and precision. Finally, aside from the 13 there is one data type called void. It is a special type that means no value. It is used most commonly as the return type for functions that return no value. This table displays the size of each integer type and its corresponding range. This table displays the size of each character type and its corresponding range. This table displays the size of each floating point type and its corresponding range. Format specifiers in C are special sequences used in input and output functions, such as printf and scanf, to specify the format of data being processed. They tell these functions how to interpret the data passed to them and how to format it for display or input. Here are some commonly used format specifiers in C. %C, used to format characters. %D or %I, used to format integers. %F, used to format floating point numbers. %LF, used to format double. %S, used to format strings. %P, used to format pointers. %ZU, used to format size_t. This C program demonstrates the usage of the print function to display different data types. Here's a brief explanation. #include studio.h. This line includes the standard input-output library, studio.h, in our program. Int main. This is the main function. In C, every program must have a main function, and the execution of the program starts from here. Opening curly brace signifies the beginning of the function body. Variable declarations. Int number equals 10, declares an integer variable number and initializes it with the value 10. Float pi equals 3.14159, declares a floating point variable pi and initializes it with the value 3.14159. Char letter equals a, declares a character variable letter and initializes it with the character a. Printing values. Printf integer, %d\n, number, prints the value of number using %d format specifier, indicating that it's an integer. Print float, %f\n, pi, prints the value of pi using %f format specifier, indicating that it's a floating point number. Printf character, %c\n, letter, prints the value of letter using %c format specifier, indicating that it's a character. Return 0. This statement indicates that the main function has finished executing and signifies successful termination of the program. Closing curly brace marks the end of the function body. As a recap, a variable is a namespace in the main memory. There are rules that need to be followed when naming a variable. The declaration of a variable is a line of code that creates a variable. It is good practice to give a variable an initial value when you declare it. An initial value is a variable's first value. There are 13 primitive built-in types in C, with one additional void type which means valueless. Lastly, each built-in type has its own size in bytes and corresponding range. Format specifiers in C are special sequences used in input and output functions to specify the format of data being processed. That's all for this video. See you in the next videos for more C programming topics.